Welcome back, everyone, to Vinyl Latte, your source for vinyl-related news, reviews, and interviews. And today, I am thrilled to be joined by the incredible Chrissi Poland, the acclaimed soul singer, songwriter, actress, and multi-instrumentalist with a five-octave range. Yes, you heard that, five-octave range, and a voice that's taken her from Berkeley to the world's biggest stages. She's worked with icons like Sting, Shaka Khan, and Mavis Staples, and her songs have appeared on HBO, Netflix, and more. And today we're going to be diving into her new album, live at the City Winery in Boston. We're going to talk a little bit about what's next in her musical journey. Chrissy, welcome. It's so great to have you here.
Thank you so much, Louis V. Thanks for having me on today. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you. I'm super excited to have somebody of your caliber on the show because you've done so much stuff. And I want to just ask you a question. Looking back on your journey, what are some of the defining moments that shaped your identity as an artist?
Oh God, I could spend the whole time telling you all those stories. If I had to pare it down a little bit, there are definitely cornerstones in my journey so far that have completely shaped me. Starting with, I grew up in a small town in Massachusetts, and then went to Berklee College of Music, and I was quickly exposed to an entire universe of music, musicians, abilities, artists that I had not been around. So that blew the doors open for me real big, just as far as the catalog of music that I started absorbing and abilities that I started unlocking by being in that environment. Then if I fast forward a little bit, I moved to New York City, and everything I started doing in the city, connecting with people, started to truly shape my brain and my voice and my sound and what I was influenced by. It was all sort of shaping who I was going to be in these like foundational years as a singer and a songwriter and an artist.
Right.
And then I can look to a couple of very big moments that changed my life and shifted things and kind of leveled up for me again. I got a gig with a pop band called Scissor Sisters. And I hadn't done a lot of world touring yet at that point. I had shuttled out and done little things here and there. But getting on with them and touring around the world and playing biggest stages, festivals like main stage at Glastonbury and main stage at Coachella and all those things, I got so exposed to what that was like and everything involved in that world. And then some of the artists that completely shaped me, one of the number ones I could talk about forever is singing with Sam Moore from Sam and Dave. And the songs Soul Man and Hold On, I'm Coming. I've spent many years touring with Sam, and just standing on the stage with him, his voice, the magic that comes through him, that influenced me so heavily. And that appears in everything that I do to this day. And I could go on and tell you many more, but that's a handful of the moments and the people that really have started to shape my little experience here in music.
Well, let me double click on that a little bit, Chrissy, if you don't mind. I mean, you've worn so many hats. You've been a singer, you're a songwriter, you're an instrumentalist. You've done so many things. You've collaborated with so many amazing artists. You've done voice work, actress, etc. How do you feel some of that earlier work has really set the foundation of what you do now?
Yeah, I feel like, for me, doing a little of many things and sort of collecting data from those experiences, like how to be really pro in a situation that I might not have had a lot of time to prepare for. How to, be on a tour bus with people, because that's a thing. Like, you have to really, if you want to get invited back, you need to know how to do the personal side of touring, because honestly, if you can't hang and you can't fit into an environment and sort of know certain kind of hierarchies and the way things go, you're not going to get a call again. There's a million people that are really talented and good at playing music and singing. So
Fair point. Yeah.
I think that the experiences that I've had along the way that have kind of gotten me to this point now, where I would say only in the past maybe handful of years, I've really come into myself as an artist, as far as a writer and a singer, and stylistically the kind of records I'm going to be making and the people I want to work with. Every journey that I've taken so far, whether it's been, I'm going to go out and be a harlot with Bette Midler, which is a whole other theatrical Broadway thing,
Right.
versus, going on tour with Sam Moore and we're doing soul music in Japan. It's very different sides of the spectrum, yet each experience collects for me information that informs more of how I want to be the best version of myself I want to be. And it's all started to kind of come into a clearer view in the past few years of as I've done this last tour, made this record, about to make the next record I'm going to make.
Was there any particular performance or collaboration that you feel was like a pivotal moment in your growth in your career?
Oh my God, there's been several. There's been several moments where, it is one thing to, get to play in an amazing venue, or, get to put on a show or a tour of my own and have a lot of people show up and buy tickets and buy material, buy my merch. That's cool. But the moments for me that really have shaped me probably the deepest are, it's sort of like, the way I can describe it is like my past has met my present in a way that has come from me looking at something or someone or something and saying, I want to work with that person. How do I make that happen? What are the steps I need to take? So, I worked the first time I ever worked with Nile Rodgers. He's one of the greatest producers of all time, and guitar players, and his hands are in so many things in music. I had been working towards meeting him for years through people that knew me that were recommending me to him. And I'd send him, messages on Twitter, or X, whatever you call it now. And eventually one day he called me on my phone and said, can you come to my house right now and do a studio
Wow.
session? Right now, like come right
Just
now.
just out of the blue. Just
Yes. Because he had heard my name enough and I had reached out enough, and I had come into his orbit enough that I came into his line of sight enough to go, I'm going to call her for that session today. Where that could have been anybody. But so here I am, a kid, in music school, freaking out to Chic Records and learning about Nile Rodgers and learning that he produced this Madonna records that I loved when I was a kid and all this stuff. And then all of a sudden, there I am in his house, and he's feeding me lines, and I'm doing a studio session for him. And I have that story many times over, singing with somebody like Michael Bolton, who's an amazing vocalist, and I've toured around the world with him, singing duets with him. I used to practice to some of his songs on the radio when I was a kid. And I felt very moved by those vocals, that he had these big, powerful vocals. And then all of a sudden I'm on stage with him, and we're standing at the Hollywood Bowl, and I'm looking in his eyes, and we're singing How Am I Supposed to Live Without You together as a duet. So those moments, when my past younger self has looked to say, oh, I really would like to do that with that person, and then they've happened, it's this really deep affirmation back to me that, like, yeah, you can actually manifest your goals. You can turn them into, step by step things that you take to get to that thing. And it's happened enough times for me to know that it's true. And then it just expands even more the realm of possibility of what I believe is possible if you are willing to do the work.
that is so powerful. So
Yeah,
powerful. Yeah.
it really
And
is.
what you touch on that I think is very dear to a lot of the viewers is that it sometimes it doesn't happen overnight. It takes time, and it takes
Oh my God.
focused, like you said, having a goal and kind of focusing on it and doing all this in between steps to achieve the goal, and just being persistent and not giving up. Eventually you can bring that goal into reality.
Absolutely, and accepting the fact that it does not happen in a straight line, that it's a graph that goes like this, and it's an
Yeah.
ups and downs, and something not working out in a particular moment, if you can keep in the mindset that, like, okay, well, that's because something else is going to work out in another way that's going to lead me to another thing. That's very hard to know and accept in the moment. But once it happens a few times, and you look back and go, oh shit, that did happen. That did happen in a way that I didn't expect it, and it's better than I expected it to be. This is a method I need to keep using in anything in creativity, but truly in life. It's, if you decide that this is a thing I'm going to work towards, and I'm just going to do the work and not worry too much about the exact outcome, but just be willing to be in the day. Every day, do the steps you need to do. You often get led somewhere that is that thing or greater than you even imagined it could be.
No, it's so true. One of my mentors always said, the first thing you have to do is show up. Second thing, know your lines. Third thing, deliver. Right?
That's it.
And then it's just so key to just repeat those three things throughout life, and you'll be
Yep.
amazed on what you can actually achieve.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about some creative process. You were kind of you brought it up in the last question, but I want to talk about this.
Yeah.
This is the
I got one right
latest
here.
project.
What?
Yeah, look at that. Mine's customized. So thank you so much for the
You're
dearing
welcome.
note. But I would love to talk to you a little bit about your latest project. This is live at City Winery in Boston. Can
Mhm.
you go ahead and maybe share a little bit about the concept of the album and who's actually playing with you on this album?
For sure. So this record, when I booked this little tour last summer, my idea was I hadn't done a tour where I was really kind of flexing the jazz side of what I do. And by that I mean, you'll hear in any of my music I write, you'll hear subgenres and subtexts of stuff that you could deem, oh, that's a bit on the jazz world, or that's a jazzy chord, or anything like that. But really, like, no, let's go in and we're going to play a couple of straight ahead tunes, and we're going to take music that I love and reimagine them sort of in this jazz or left of center jazz idiom with a trio behind me. And I'm going to meld that with a couple of moments in the show where I just sit down at the piano and I play and sing my material as well. So that was the idea for the show. And I called the three people that I really wanted to have on this project, who are the guys on the record. So first of all, it's Josh Dion on drums. Josh and I go way back to running around the village in New York together as kids, playing at the bitter end and doing a million gigs together and just staying up late at night, eating pizza, talking about music. Josh is one of the most phenomenal contemporary drummers in that he is so much more than a drummer. He's a singer, he's a multi-instrumentalist, he's a writer. He's got a spirit that's, bigger than Mount Everest. He's just larger than life in so many ways.
I
And
love people like that.
oh God, he's the best. And it's been amazing to watch Josh evolve over the years. So Josh created his side band project called Paris Monster that's been very successful over the past 10 plus years at this point. And Josh is playing drums and playing keys at the same time, synth bass and keyboards, and singing at the same time. So it's really seeing him coming into his own. But then he'll go out with like Bill Stewart and do a jazz tour. So anyway, I really want to pull Josh into this. On bass, I have James Genus, who is mostly known right now for being the bass player with Herbie Hancock for many, many years. And also, he's held the bass chair on Saturday Night Live for over 20 years. So you see
Wow.
him on SNL every Saturday night. James and I have come in and out of each other's spheres on different shows and in different things we've worked on together. And there was just a lot of love and mutual respect. And I idolized him. And he and I've been lucky to have him on a handful of my original shows. So having him, somebody who's so soulful but also so steeped in a jazz background, was a dream. And then my friend Stu Mindeman, who is originally from Chicago, based in Chicago, who partnered with me to create a lot of these arrangements. He's on keys. He's often out with Dave Weckl, and he's been out with Judy Collins, and again a wide breadth of ability with him, but so steeped in this world of jazz that can kind of go into soul or a little bit into R&B. So that's where we wanted to keep the show. And we recorded it live, multi-track recording. And then we took that recording, and from that I curated the 6 songs that I wanted to be on this record. And yeah, 6 songs is not a lot of songs for a record, but because it's a jazz record, I think the first song's like 9 minutes long. There's a lot of solos and
Right.
stuff. And I just
Right.
hadn't had, this is something I hadn't done yet, which is one of my motivating forces of why I wanted to do it. And then really to have a beautiful moment captured in time, this one show, that's just exactly how it is. This is great about live shows. You can be on a tour, but every night is different. So
Mhm.
this doesn't pull from many different shows. It's one show as it is. And I was so thrilled with the way that it came out.
Was there something that inspired you to capture this particular performance? Why? I mean, I guess if you're on tour, why this live show for the album?
My thought, and I didn't let myself think too much beyond this. I just said I'm going to just go with this, is because it was the first show of our run.
Oh
And I
wow.
wanted to catch it in its most organic, almost most scary phase. We only had one rehearsal, and when you tour a show and you do many in a row, things, you settle in, they iron out, you're used to it. This was going to be a moment where it was the first time we played it live in this configuration, and
That's so
that
cool.
just felt organic and real to me in a way that I kind of wanted to lean into that, even with its imperfections and even with its, there's moments where I can hear, oh yeah, by the third or fourth show, we really had that little moment so smooth. Or I can hear the figurings and do we got it right here? Not everybody might notice that, but I notice it, and there's something beautiful about that to me, which is why I wanted to stick with show one.
Well, that's awesome. And I love the fact that it was like your first time, like the show one, right? Like that's just it. Just to your point, it just brings more realism because a lot of times these live albums they're so edited or they pick like the best songs from a tour and sometimes they'll say it's live at a particular venue but it's really not. It's like a hodgepodge from different recordings. They just use the venue to help promote or give a title to the album, but this is authentic. I guess that's the word I'm looking for. It's authentic in the fact that it's the first show's first performance live at the first venue, and all the little nuances that I think make the album special are included. You didn't go ahead and like refine it and tweak it. You kept it real and authentic.
Yeah, there's something about that I wanted to have kind of cataloged in time for my little musical journey and my story is exactly that, to just capture this and let it be the organic thing that it is. And when I go back and listen to it, it just feels very inspired and real. So much of what I did on that, just me, as far as vocals go, or when I'm playing and singing, was pulling from the energy in the crowd, and okay, we're doing this for the first time, and some of it's scary. I mean, these guys are bad mofos, and I'm good at what I do, but there I will have moments where I'm like, oh my god, don't let me lose a one. Oh my god, let me make sure I just stay with stay with these maestros. So there's something about that feels, it pulls me wanting to have that out in the world a little bit more, because honestly it's a metaphor for in life. Like, it's good to be a little nervous and a little scared and a little outside of your comfort zone, because otherwise what are you doing? And then you're not growing. So
No, it's so true.
yeah.
It's so true. I want to double click here real quick. Six songs, two sides, three on each side if you buy the LP. And we'll talk a little bit about where you can pick this up in a moment. But you have six songs on here, two of which are originals to you. We're going to get back on those. I'm going to talk about those two tracks specifically in
Yeah.
a moment. But the other four songs are cover songs done in a jazz vibe.
Mhm.
Can you maybe talk us through the set list and how did you design the set list? Were you trying to tell a story? Were you trying to showcase a range? Or is there something else that really went behind curating this specific set list for the album?
Yeah, so when I was originally thinking about material, and I was talking to my friend Stu Mindeman, who's on keys and did the arrangements with me, I was telling him how, there's been so much music over the course of my life from the time I'm a little child that filtered into my head and hit me in a certain way that, just always stayed powerful to me and probably shaped me and influenced me. So I was pulling from that pool of music as far as songs I wanted to touch upon that have had major impacts on me. And so, for example, the first song was the first song in the set. So first song on side A is Bye Bye Blackbird. And that was the first song we opened the show with. And you can hear it. You can hear, people clapping when we come on the stage. And that particular song, it's a jazz standard. It's an old song. But that particular version on the record, it says it's a tribute to Rochelle Farrell. And Rochelle
Mm-hmm.
Farrell, for those of you who may not know, is an incredible vocalist and pianist, and a cannot be categorized, jazz and soul and R&B and folk and singer-songwriter, and just sort of all into this one unique alien that she is, with all kinds of technical ability, but so much heart and so much soul. And the first time I ever witnessed her, I heard her on a record first, and I was very taken aback. I was 19 years old. I was in college. And then I went and saw her live in New York. I saw her at SOB's. in New York City. And I remember sitting there in the venue and having an out of body experience at what I was witnessing with this woman who was so tuned in to the muse of wherever your creative forces come from. And it was clearly channeling through it. And it was effortless mastery, what I was witnessing. And I was like, oh my, I'm hooked. Like that is what I'm striving for. Let me get all the blockers out of the way and just live in that headspace. So it was very profound for me. And she's an artist that I always came back to over the years and would listen to when I just wanted my mind blown, or when I just wanted to hear something that was so incredibly unique that it couldn't be anybody ever except her. And over the past handful of years, I've had some friends that have played with her. She's dealt with some health problems. I've never met her. But when I heard her sing Bye Bye Blackbird, it just changed me. And so our version of it here on the show is really done in the style that I heard her do it on her Blue Note record release. It's the same tempo, it's the same key, it's the same format. And, the things I do in the improvisational things I do in the middle are different, and they veer a little bit away. But I keep finding myself, when I listen to it, I can find myself coming back, and some of the things that'll pop out in my vocal improvisational moments are like, that's for Michelle, that's for Michelle. I can hear it. So yeah, just doing that song, it meant a lot to me to honor that vibe in her that just completely blew me away and changed my head as far as music goes. So that's why that's song one. And then Come Back to Me is an old Janet Jackson song from the 80s. And, over the years, in the 80s into the 90s, I would hear that on the radio and just melt. The chord changes, that's that Jimmy Jam, Terry Lewis era of Janet that was this like super jazzy and major 7 chords and major 9 chords. And long before I knew anything about music, it was drawing me in. And so we took that song and we said, how can we reimagine this? And it's sort of, it's got a bit of a Latin feel. It's sort of like a bit of a sped up bossa vibe, and the guy's solo in it. And so it's sort of combining that R&B pop song vibe with the jazz sensibility that was so exciting for me to do on these shows and on this album.
Yeah, I've never heard that song that way before. It was actually quite surprising,
Yeah.
to be honest with you. Yeah,
Yeah.
really, really well done. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, we had fun doing that. And it was a challenge too. Just rhythmically, it was a bit of a challenge, and it was so embedded in me, the original one, that it took me a minute to kind of get into the world of what is this one about, and how can we serve this rhythm structure and this chordal structure that departs a little bit from the original, but still keep it so people knew what the song was. So that was really fun. That was a blast to do that. And then the other covers, so It's Too Late. Carole King has been a huge influence on me my whole life as a songwriter and a piano player, and just a woman in music. I love that song. And, we took it and added a few measures to it. We added some reharmonization to it. It goes into more of a cut time feel in the chorus. The drum beat changes. So just those little shifts in that song felt really lovely to me. And again, it's a song that's familiar to the audience, but they hadn't really heard it in that way. And
Yeah, exactly.
and it landed nicely for the listeners, but for myself too. That was just so fun to sing that song in that way. And then the last cover on this, talk about another major influence on like everybody who's ever written a song, Joni Mitchell. So one of her, most pinnacle moments as a writer is when she writes the greatest song to articulate the Woodstock experience, even though she never went to Woodstock. And for a while, I had been playing Woodstock solo in my shows, so I would just sit at the piano and play it solo. And I had an idea. I thought, oh, this would be great to do this solo, but have James come up and do a bass solo in the middle while I just hold down chords and rhythm and let him just go wherever he's going to go. Very exciting, very scary for me. Very scary. 'Cause I'm like, I'm playing, because I'll go in and out of my own rhythmic flow. If I'm playing slow, I'll push and pull a tempo, whatever, and I can do that throughout. But when we got to that section where he was going to go, and I needed to kind of be the quarter note on the keys, and and hold it enough to let him go wherever he was going to go, and for me to keep the form in my own head without anybody else
Right.
holding time. So, and we never rehearsed it. That was
I was
on
going
the
to say, and
spot.
it's your first time doing it, right? So,
Yeah,
you
even
know,
though we had a
and you're
rehearsal for the
recording it.
show, we had a rehearsal for the show, but we didn't rehearse that. And it's magical. I listened back to that moment recently, and he's so creative, and he paints pictures with his bass solos all the time, and he's so deep inside that music as well. So it created something so lovely, and there was moments of like we're doing this for the first time, and so that was a really special moment. I loved what happened there, and it was, again, it was scary, but in like a good way for me.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, I got to say, all of the covers were a treat because I was familiar with these songs, but I never heard them performed in that way. And I would have never guessed that this was show number one, and that it wasn't well rehearsed. I know you said you did a one rehearsal before the show, but it sounds like y'all have been playing and singing together for a very long time. I mean,
Oh man,
everything just
thank you.
flows beautifully. Yeah.
Thank you.
But there's two tracks that I really want to touch on.
Yeah.
To me, they were actually the two tracks that I was most blown away with.
Oh, thank you.
Um, the last song on side A, Dawn. There, there's something about this song that emotionally grabbed me. And I don't want to spoil it for the audience because I'd like you to talk a little bit about what the meaning and everything is behind the song. But there's a point of basically almost being nobody sees you, nobody hears you, nobody knows you exist, and all of a sudden you're almost found, and that really was very touching. I'd love for you to talk a little bit about the song and what was the inspiration and who is the song written for.
Yeah. Thank you for the kind words. That means a lot to me, especially as a writer. You really want to try to reach people with what you're doing, and if someone gets reached, through something you create, that you feel like you're doing something right. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I sat down to write Dawn. I remember the day, because this has happened to me a few times with the songs that I feel like were kind of gifts. They come to me very quickly. It's as if it was sort of there, and I caught a vibe, I caught a muse, and I pulled it down and could put my stamp on it. So I remember sitting down at the piano and playing those block chords and that pulse feeling, and thinking about this record that I was writing at the time. That album of mine is called Waking Hour, and everything I was writing for that record was sort of about discovering, coming out of a time of a journey in your life that is particularly dark, whatever that means for anybody else. But I know for me, going through a lot of low points earlier on in my life, earlier on in my career, where I did feel very lost and hopeless for a variety of reasons, and trying to harness that and use that in material. And when I started writing Dawn, I remember the very first line, or the very first chord, I was pulsing that A chord, and the very first line that came to me: "In every beating heart there is a story." And from there, I was like, "Oh, this is what this song is about. This is about all of us, whoever we are on this planet, all 8 billion of us walking around have that in common. We have this beating heart that has a story in it that's particular to our journey. And that's a tie that ties us all together." And so I just sort of started to follow that thread. And it mirrored my own experience of feeling, when the chorus talks about living in the dark, whatever that means for you, a dark time, depression, whatever the thing is, how eventually you can come through that. However you come through that is everybody's unique individual story. That might be because of this person that they met, or an experience that they had. Or for me, I was kind of writing it from two perspectives. I remember thinking, like, when the line says, the last lines of the chorus, "The light was lost, you turned me around and aimed me toward the dawn." The way I perceived that for myself was I was kind of speaking to myself, in that, like, you know, because, I had love and support around me, I was able to sort of do that for myself. And it's another thing I think everybody can experience at some point, is that ultimately, if you're going to shift from a dark place into a light place, you have support, you have love, you have people that want to be there with you, but ultimately it's you. You have to make the choice. You have to be the one that says, and now I'm moving on, whatever that is for you. And I remember writing it and getting choked up. This has happened to me a few times, where getting choked up and really feeling deeply about it. And that's when I was like, this is a thing that it's special in that you almost don't even feel like you wrote, like, I know I wrote it, but you feel like it came through, a channel that isn't always open. Right? Songwriters, they feel this way. Like, sometimes the channel just gets open, and then you get this gift that comes through, and it all just makes sense, and it's right there. And I have a million experiences of, like, I can't figure it out. I'm banging on the piano, and there's like nothing's happening. I'm like, oh, I suck. Never gonna write a good song again. But this one was one of those moments where it was just kind of there at a time in my life when I was feeling those things.
It's a deeply, I think, personal song, and I think whoever's listening to the song can interpret it in so many different ways. That's what I found. It was like open, because who finds you could be yourself, like you mentioned. It could be a friend or a family member that finally you feel special, right? Because they're making you feel special because they
Yep.
love you. I felt like it also could be a religious experience as well.
Yep.
Like, there's so many different, or falling in love and getting into a relationship, right?
Yeah.
Finally feeling like you're with the right person. There's so many different ways to interpret it. But one of the things that really struck me too was we're in a time where we have access to everything and everybody, right? Through social media, etc. But a lot of folks feel lonely, even with all this access. And I think even that can touch on a whole generation of people out there that just feel, even with all this information and social media and ways to communicate, still feel lonely.
Oh, absolutely. If it more so than ever now, like, we've lived in this earth at a time where we knew what it felt like to not have those things in our life, and we know what it
Yeah.
feels like to have. And we're really the last generation that will live on this earth that way, unless something insane happens. But, like,
Right.
everybody born from us on only knows a world of this kind of technology that has social media. And yes, it makes you connected to everybody, but it makes you completely disconnected from yourself, because you compare, and everything on those platforms is very, very curated and meant to look shiny and clean and amazing, and it's all bullshit. And if you know that, if you can look at it and know it, okay, then you're not going to fall victim of it. It's not going to own you. But there are so
Right.
many people, especially young people, that should not be exposed to any of that stuff while their little brains are forming and they don't have a true sense of self yet. To start to go into that compare and despair world of social media is really super dangerous. So, I hope as time goes on, and it does feel like the pendulum is swinging back the other way, that people are more hip to, like, yeah, that's not really a good idea for me all the time, or young people
Yeah.
all the time, because it really doesn't allow you to connect to the truth of your experience, where you just deal with this, and it's not about what everything else is going on. So yeah,
Yeah.
I could not agree with you more on that.
Yeah. I wrote as one of my notes, because every time, if for those that follow Vinyl Latte, they know I take notes when I listen to music. And one of the things that I wrote down was chilling. It felt chilling listening to the song. Like it really impacted me emotionally.
Oh, wow.
But a song that the second song that you have on here, "Angel Weep for Me," I wrote down goosebumps, because no kidding, that's what I had
Thank you.
listening to that song. Not only is the vocal delivery magical on that album, and your range is just, it's just, there's these moments of like soft passages, and there's moments of the complete opposite, and a dynamic range there. It just I don't know, it just brings a whole emotional experience. It gives you this emotional delivery that is just stunning.
Thank you.
I'm curious to know what the background and the inspiration behind that song is, and how do you bring all of that emotional delivery into that song and the entire, honestly, album that you put together?
Thank you so much. Angel Wait for Me is really special to me. That's the song that people who have followed me in my career, that's the one they've attached to the most. That's the one they feel the most connected to. I would say the same for me. That is the one that I feel most connected to. I wrote that song in my apartment in Greenpoint, Brooklyn, many years ago now. And I remember I had a show booked at the Bitter End in New York, and I was still kind of figuring out like who am I as an artist? What do I want to do? And well, I know I love soul music, and I know I feel so connected when I write words that feel, true to the human experience. I vibrate on a high frequency when I tap into that. And I remember sitting down and playing that little opening riff, da, 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 and hitting that F chord for the first time. And right there, I was like, this is the thing. And I started to follow that just the feeling of feeling helpless, really, truly feeling like I cannot do this. I can't do this, whatever the thing is. And I had been through enough of that feeling to know that just I cannot carry this weight anymore. And the idea that we always, as humans, can find a way to give that up to something else. And you make that whatever you want. If that's your religion, if that's your God, if that's your best friend, if that's someone in your family, if it's your pet that's like your emotional support pet, whatever it is everybody's own thing. And it could be anything. But the feeling of, I have to give this up to, I can't carry this weight by myself anymore, hit me so hard. And again, it's one of those things that we all have in common, no matter where we live, no matter what we do, no matter our status or how privileged we are or how much in a despairing place of life we're in. We all have that feeling at some point where we can't continue to bear this thing by ourselves, whatever that thing is. And so when I just followed that thought process, all those words came to me, and the melody, it just kind of was all there again. And that little chorus, that just repetitive mantra of you call on the angels, you call on the angels, you call on the angels, angels weep for me, is like, that feels like a prayer to me. It feels like a yoga meditation. It feels like a prayer in church. It feels like the thing that you do when you're trying to accept that you can't and your hands are up and ready for help.
Yeah.
And when it all came together the way that it did, it just, again, it was one of those moments where I was choked up and I felt like had a channel opened so I could express like a true deep thing I truly felt in my heart. And I remember the first time I played it at the Bitter End, the first time I played it live, and I could see the reaction from people, and I was having a reaction, and that was so special to me. And I still feel so honored to have that little song in my arsenal, because it reaches people and it reaches me when I play it. And that's why it pulls so much emotion out of me, because that place opens up where I'm singing it from. And the notes are the notes, but what's really driving it is the feeling, the emotion behind it. And it sort of all just kind of dovetails together in the thing that it is.
That being honest with your emotions and almost being vulnerable when you create your music, we feel that, right? And I felt that on that album. And I felt it on those two songs very specifically because I think that those songs were relatable. Not saying that the other songs are not beautiful music. They are, and their songs are going to, they're going to pass the test of time for sure. My kids and kids and kids are going to be playing those songs, later in life. But
Yeah.
your lyrics, they're not only emotional, but they're grabbing because they're so real. It's something that you, as a person, no matter who you are, where you are, what you believe in, can relate to. It's very relatable.
Yeah, I feel like that as well. And I feel like that when I listen to songwriters that I love, I have so many from my friends, to some of the biggest icons in the world. But it's that exact thing when they can articulate it in a way that it's like, oh my God, they're talking about me. That's like such a gift to have, to listen to, and to have a chance to create that. If that lands that way with anybody, that is that makes all of this, what we do, so worth it. If anybody ever comes up to me after a show and takes my hand and tells me that I help them feel something, I mean, I feel that I have won at life. It has nothing to do with any other aspect of the business or the money or the any kind of accolade, none of that. It's that human experience exchange that allows us to connect as artists through music or dance or acting and the creative world. It's like really, really a gift to be able to be inside of that.
Well, let me ask you a little bit about that, Chrissy, especially for aspiring artists. When you're writing new music, do you start with the lyrics? Is it a melody? Is there a certain feeling you're chasing? I mean, how does it come to reality?
Yeah, I'll have different avenues at different times, but I've noticed lately, as far as writing goes, everybody sort of has their process. For me lately, I went through a period the past couple of years where I couldn't write. I just couldn't. I mean, I could, but it wasn't landing for me. I was like, I'm not feeling connected to this. Like I'm
Is it like a
playing the
writer's
chords.
block thing, or
Yeah, something like that. And it's very common. I've talked to so many musicians and artists and friends about this, and I've listened to Joni Mitchell interviews where she's like, I couldn't write for 6 years. All I could do is paint. It comes in waves. And I think it comes in waves because we're going through different ways of experiences in our lives where we need to be open and sometimes we need to be really shut down because we're dealing. I don't know, like if you're in a phase of life where you're just kind of dealing with logistics and you're not really tapped into that creative piece of you, sometimes it can be hard to get back to it. So for me, I definitely was struggling with that for a while. And it's only been in the last handful of months. It's really interesting how the whole thing opened up again. And in a way that I was like, whoa, okay, I haven't experienced that before, like being so cut off from it and then having it open up again. And, to answer your question, as far as what my process goes, something like this, often I'll start to get an idea, like a lyric or a melody. I could be anywhere, would go for a walk, driving in the car, whatever, wherever I am. And if something comes to me and it's sticking, I'll grab my phone real quick and I'll just sing it into the voice memo. So we've got got a million voice memo apps. And then there have been some times lately where I get an idea and I'm in the studio or I'm home, so I can just go right to the piano and start to play and sing. And I've caught that vibe a handful of times recently where I've written full songs in an hour. Good chunks of bits that are coming out, and everything's going into a file folder now, which is the very, very beginnings of pre-production. But so for me, it sort of starts like that. And for anybody, however your creative process is, the best advice I always try to give people, young people that are coming up and first starting, is to just sit with it and get the initial ideas out. Don't judge your writing from the jump. Write brain dump. So whatever the thought is, write it all down, all the lyrics. Don't judge, "Oh, that's not a good word," or "that rhyme doesn't work." Don't do any of that. Just everything out first, and then take a beat, and then go back and start to put it together. And I find that the more I say yes to anything that comes through me, the more I'm able to find and access and sort of put together in the way of what I feel like is a good song. Whereas if I edit myself right from the very beginning, you're cutting yourself off from a lot of possibilities.
yeah, thank you for that. Such a great process just to do a brain dump and just get everything out so you don't lose it, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
big
yeah,
time.
such a
Yeah.
great tip. Chrissy, what's next after this album? It's now available. It's released. We're gonna end with where they can get the album. But what is next after live from the winery, live at City Winery in Boston? Are there any new projects? Do you have any more collaborations or directions that you're excited to explore?
Yes, I do. I have a few things going on right now. One thing, some folks may have seen this if they're following me online or following a handful of these musicians that I play with that I love so dearly. So James Genus, Osnoy, who's an amazing guitar player and a writer, and Dave Weckl, who's one of the greatest drummers of our time. The four of us got together. We recorded a cover of a Prince song last year, and we put that out. And we did a little tour this spring. So we played 2 shows at Iridium and we did a city winery tour in March. And it went really, really well. We all had a blast. We felt like we were kind of onto something with the music we were doing that kind of combines jazz, contemporary jazz with soul and R&B. And the four of us hadn't done something like that together in a unit like that. And we really liked it. So we're working on a West Coast run right now that might be happening in December. We're looking at December for West Coast, up as high up, I think, as Seattle, all the way down into LA. So keep an eye out for that with those guys. We're working on, hopefully we'll be releasing a new song before that. Another thing I'm really excited about, I haven't talked a lot about this yet because it's still in the beginning phases, but I'm working on a new album project that's going to be based in Muscle Shoals, Alabama, where some of the greatest soul music was ever written and recorded at Fame Studios. Aretha Franklin, Etta James, my beloved Sam from Sam and Dave, Sam Moore recorded Hold On I'm Coming in Muscle Shoals. So I have connected with a handful of friends, musicians and producers that have some footing down there. And I've gone down and we've made some demos and we're kind of putting the pieces together for this album right now. Hopefully we will be continuing working on that over the next several months. So that's something I'm really, really excited about because my whole true self that's really rooted in soul music, which isn't really a genre, it's a feeling. And I think that's why it speaks to me so much and why I come from that place so much. To make an album of music honoring what was done in Muscle Shoals and then follow that up with another original record of my own in that same style that we record down there in Muscle Shoals. That I'm really psyched about. So that's all in the beginning phases, but we've taken several steps into it. So that's a process. So that's coming down the pipeline. And then this summer, I'm going on tour with Christopher Cross and Men at Work and Toto, best yacht rock tour ever. So
Nice.
that's going to
Yeah.
be awesome. I'm singing with Christopher in his band. So that'll be a handful of weeks out on the road, July and August. If anybody comes out to those shows, you'll see me up there with Chris. He's amazing. And that whole tour is amazing. So I'm really looking forward to that. And yeah, there's a lot brewing.
Well, there is a lot of exciting things on the roadmap that's ahead. Chrissy, how can fans follow you and learn more about all these future projects and to check out your current tour?
Yeah, for sure. So you can always go to my website. It's just my name, chrissypoland.com. And there it's just like a landing page. So you can find all my social media, my YouTube. That'll also take you to Bandcamp. And that link is also available on Instagram and on Facebook. So Bandcamp is like the online store, and that'll take you to, you'll see this pop right up. And underneath the record, there's an ability to play it. So you can play it on Bandcamp, listen to side A, listen to side B, and then you have the option to purchase it there. I'll sign it and write something personal to you for all the orders. And then also it's being housed on Experience Vinyl with our buddy Seth. So you can go over to experiencevinyl.com and find my record there on top of thousands of other amazing records that they're housing. It's a really fun place to go for vinyl deep diving. Yeah, and you can find me just under my name on all the platforms. I'm not hard to find.
Yes. So again, I'll put the links in the description, but if you want to pick up Chrissy's latest or previous projects and future projects, check out chrissypoland.com. You can also visit her Bandcamp. And of course, you can pick up the record at experiencevinyl.com. We'll have the links to all of those in the description. Chrissy, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. Thank you so much for sharing your gift to the world and recording it for us so we can enjoy these amazing experiences at home. It's been a pleasure to have you on the program.
Oh, Louis V, thank you so much. I've had so much fun chatting with you about all this today, and it fills my heart to talk about this stuff. It really does. So I appreciate the time.
We appreciate your time and wish you the utmost success in your future collaborations. Thank you,
Thank
Chrissy.
you, my friend. Thank you so much.